offering reassurance after another round of U.S. strikes on Houthi targets in Yemen.
We don't seek war. We don't think that we are at war.
Instead, the Pentagon says it's self-defense. Today's strikes hitting 2 anti-ship missiles that were prepared to launch, targeting ships in the Red Sea. The law enforcement response to the massacre at a Texas elementary school was a failure. That conclusion from a Justice Department report released by U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland in Uvalde.
The DOJ's scathing new report showing local police in Uvalde responded within minutes. 5 of them advancing under the sounds of gunshots. They came under fire, took on shrapnel, then retreated as hundreds of officers descended on the scene, most not knowing what to do because of failed leadership.
Officials on scene transitioned from treating the scene as an active shooter situation to treating the shooter as a barricaded subject.
Over an hour went by with more shots being fired by the gunman before police advanced again, killing him, though not before he murdered 19 students and 2 teachers.
Fox's Jeff Manasso. Prosecutors in Texas still reviewing possible criminal charges. The prosecutor leading an election interference case against former President Trump and others in Georgia may face an investigation herself.
Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee has set February 15th for a hearing to address an alleged relationship between Fulton County DA Fani Willis and Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade. DA Willis has been given until February 2nd to respond to the filing.
Fox's Gernal Scott. Willis has not directly answered claims of a relationship or of misusing taxpayer funds, but suggested this week that criticism is racially motivated. A late rally on Wall Street, the Dow up 202 at the bell. America is listening to Fox News.
At Consumer Cellular, you get the same exact coverage as the largest carriers, but for up to half the cost. Same thing, up to half the cost. Up to half the cost for the same thing. 50% the money for 100% the same thing. I hope I'm making myself clear. Consumer Cellular. When freedom calls, we're here to answer. Call us at 1-888-FREEDOM.
Half the cost savings based on cost of Consumer Cellular single-line 5GB data plan with unlimited talk and text compared to lowest cost single-line postpaid unlimited talk, text, and data plan offered by T-Mobile and Verizon May 2023.
To avoid digital threats, turn on NordVPN. It's trusted by millions of users. Just visit NordVPN.com. One of the fastest VPNs on Earth will block web trackers, malicious websites, and malware-ridden downloads. It will also encrypt your internet traffic while maintaining a smooth connection. So improve your digital privacy and protection against hackers with one simple click. Get the special deal at NordVPN.com and enjoy safer internet daily. NordVPN. Cybersecurity built for every day.
The clock's ticking on Capitol Hill with a deadline tomorrow to avoid a partial government shutdown. The Senate passing a short-term bill today and sending it to the House.
The bill moves the government funding deadline from this Friday to early March, continuing current funding levels passed in the previous Congress. Lawmakers hope this will give Congress enough time to pass a full budget. It now heads to the House for a vote this evening. There has been an effort by some conservatives to add border security amendments to the bill, but a spokesperson for Speaker Mike Johnson's office says the plans to vote on the bill as is have not changed. On Capitol Hill, Ryan Schmelz, Fox News.
Separately, bipartisan talks continue on border policy changes as part of a deal to win support for the president's supplemental budget request, which includes aid for Israel and Ukraine. The first all-European astronaut mission to the International Space Station is set to lift off in Florida later this hour.
Astronauts from Italy, Turkey, and Sweden will fly under the command of a dual national from Spain and the U.S., Michael Lopez Alegria, chief astronaut for Houston-based Axiom Space.
It really gets back to developing the organic capability within the company to do human spaceflight, which, despite how I hope we make it look easy, is actually very, very complicated.
NASA looks to the private sector to replace the quarter-century-old International Space Station, which is set to be retired at the end of the decade. At Kennedy Space Center in Florida, Jonathan Seri, Fox News.
Today's launch is scheduled for 4:49 p.m. Eastern Time. The SpaceX Dragon capsule will be expected to reach the space station on Saturday. Recapping stocks in this late rally, both the Dow and the Nasdaq finishing up more than 200 points. The S&P also in the green, up 41. For most of the day, the Dow had been in the red. Meantime, oil prices surging back over $74 a barrel. Elisa Brady, Fox News.
Hello again, everyone. Let's check weather for East Central Illinois. Champaign-Urbana vicinity. Real roller coaster ride of weather here over the next 7 to 10 days, leading off with a bit of snow across the area this morning. Minor accumulation to up to an inch in spots. Mostly cloudy this afternoon. Maybe a late day snow shower up to 27 for the high. Wind shifting around west-northwest tonight, turning blustery and very cold again. More snow breaking out. Additional accumulations of 1 to as much as 3 inches blowing and drifting. Gets going on the overnight. Low down to 10 above. For the day tomorrow, windy, very cold again. A few snow flurries in the morning. Some areas of blowing and drifting snow, becoming partly sunny, 13, then falling temperatures in the afternoon will bottom out near 0 for tomorrow night. Very cold, partly cloudy, and 11 on Saturday, moderating to 21 late in the day on Sunday, and then milder and wetter next week, up to 31, maybe some freezing rain Monday afternoon, freezing rain possible Tuesday morning, rain late in the day, cloudy, breezy, 37, more rain ahead next Wednesday and Thursday, high temperatures climbing well into the 40s, perhaps near 50 come Thursday. For Stevie J Broadcasting, I'm meteorologist Greg Solier.
Hey, what's up? It's The Drive with Sam Piper, ESPN Radio 93.5. Derek Piper, Kyle Tosk. Load management day for Lante. He had to get through winter break, which he did. Credit to him. Although we did take a week off in there, so it's not like we were on every week, 5 days a week. But we're resting him up because I'll be on baby relief here pretty soon. Hopefully within the next 2 weeks or so. My son came 10 days late, and we're not hoping for that with my daughter. So, we're getting Lon rested. If he needs it or not, he's out today. Kyle and I will hold it down and get you ready for Illinois and Michigan. The Illini back in action after a disappointing performance the last time that we saw them on Sunday against the Maryland Terrapins. The Terps last night, while we're on the subject, that was a heck of a game, Kyle, there in Evanston between Maryland and Northwestern. Boo Buie and Jameer Young going back and forth. I don't know, maybe I couldn't tell even as I was thinking about it. Does Illinois want Maryland to win? And that loss doesn't look as bad. Or then again, if Northwestern loses at home, then beating Northwestern by 30 and Champaign maybe doesn't look as good. So I don't know if there was a winner in that, but Maryland's definitely playing better. But credit to Chris Collins is their side for doing what they should do, which is win at home. And unfortunately, Illinois didn't do that on Sunday.
Yeah, that game, Illinois at Northwestern, is that next week?
It is. I think next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday. That's going to be a tough game. Northwestern, credit to them these last 2 years, it has been really hard to go to Evanston and win. Like, prior to last year, you think about, at Northwestern, that's not barely even a road game, especially for Illinois.
Yeah.
Like, Illinois fans would be 60% of the crowd there. But
if not more. I've seen more there.
Yeah, I'm sure. And last year we saw, obviously, Illinois really struggled there and didn't play well. And then a day later, Sky Clark leaves the team.
That's right.
And Purdue's lost there the last 2 years. Like, that's a tough place to play. That's going to be a really hard game. And I wouldn't expect Illinois to be as dominant defensively against a guy like Buie 2 times.
That's a good point. Yeah, their student section is definitely ramped up. They're getting in the mix. And I'm not going to say it's on the even top half of maybe most imposing places to go from an environment standpoint, but I do think they've had good turnouts, and that it looks like, I know that a lot of the jokes, I'm a U of I grad, so I've always heard it like, hey, Northwestern nerds, not a fun group, not a place that is all that raucous and fun and whatnot, but they make Northwestern basketball look cool, and which you'd say 5 years ago or through the years has been hard to do. So what they've been able to accomplish here the last couple of years, and I know that you go back more than that, and Collins had a good team with Vic Law and Bryant McIntosh that went to the tournament as well. But this year they look en route for a back-to-back tournament appearance, and I think that I like their team. Like I like Brooks Barnheiser's a good player, man. I think he's an underrated guy in the league. He's a very skilled forward that doesn't shoot it all that great, although he can make it from the perimeter, is really skilled, can go Just a variety of moves around the basket, and the way that Ty Berry's shooting it this year has been really impressive, and it's been a step forward as he's taken on a bigger role with Chase Audige being gone, and obviously Bowie's doing what he's doing. And there was a different opinion of Bowie, I think, around here, especially with the way that Trent Frazier locked him up for a handful of years. Like, it's just a high-volume scorer who's going to take some questionable shots. He'll have his night. Usually it was against Michigan State. He went for 28 or 30 against the Spartans. Yeah, that's usually what he does. But then what does he do in the other 19 Big Ten games? But now he's a bona fide top-level guard. And I got to ask this, Kyle. I got this asked in a mailbag. I think it's pertinent now that we've seen some of the top guards in the Big Ten, and I think he's a rung below what Illinois has seen. But when he's right, and what I'm speaking on is who they're going to see tonight, Doug McDaniel is a pretty good point guard, and especially earlier in the year, what he did against St. John's, and he's had a couple of explosive outings. But I was asked in my mailbag if you could take one player off a Big Ten team and put him on this Illinois team. Now, this was prior to Illinois losing Terrence Shannon, so keep that in mind as well. And my answer was Zach Edey. I think that's the right answer.
Yeah.
But in terms of guards, Illinois has seen now Tyson Walker. They've seen Boo Buie. They've seen Jameer Young. They're about to see Doug McDaniel. I know that Bruce Thornton's had a good year at Ohio State. What do you think the right answer is now that we have a little bit more on through our radar of seeing them up close against the Illini this year, and we're further along in Big Ten play? Is Bowie the right answer? Because that's where my gut said. Like back in, I answered it in December, and I said that Bruce Thornton on paper is probably the right answer because of his assist rate and his three-point shooting was a lot better. But that Bowie, to me, as a fifth-year guy, just kind of leaning into, hey, let's ride with this old group, last dance type of mode, that it was hard to go against Bowie. What do you think? Jameer Young's been really good recently too, though.
That's a really tough one. I think, to me, there's probably three guys that I would consider, and it would be Bowie, Young, and then I'd throw Tyson Walker in there as well. I know he's not really – for Illinois, they'd love to have like a playmaker and a guy that can distribute a little more than Walker does. He more plays a two at Michigan State next to Hogard, but he's probably the best offensive player of the three, to be honest.
And especially if you're like playing booty ball with the mask, him as a spot-up shooter would be really dangerous.
Yep.
Or with Shannon going downhill, of course, if he's still in the fold.
But, man, I do just watching Bowie and how he gets to spots, how he can drive. He's got that little floater that would be just so great in this Illinois offense. Like if you run a pick and pop with him and Coleman pops out, but Bowie takes his guy and floats one in. I don't know, man. That's tough. And he's been great this year. He's in some of Northwestern's best games. He's had like 8-9 assists in some of them. I know he had 9 against Purdue and spraying it out to shooters. So I probably would have to go Bowie. I think he might be the most complete point guard.
The little floater, and it wasn't a little one, the floater he hit late last night, he takes it like from the free throw line. I'm like, that's a bad shot.
He hit one of those against Purdue late too.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, but it went right in, and then Maryland goes down, and they're not able to. I think that took the lead late, and then Maryland wasn't able to make the shot. Jameer Young took a deep pull-up two that missed, and then ultimately Northwestern escapes. But
it is tough, though. Jameer Young's averaging 21 points a game. He's just dominating.
He's killing it. Yeah, and that's the guy that I expected to see all year long, and I don't think it's necessarily been Maryland being down has been tied to Jameer Young all on his own, not being the A1 guy this year. It's the supporting cast around him. They're obviously not shooting the three at all. Geronimo, if you're wanting to feel a little bit better as an Atlanta fan, he made 3 threes last night.
Oh, boy.
A guy that had made 3 threes by the end of the Illinois game all season, he made 3 threes last night. But that was a great battle. I would also add to this conversation before we move on, Bowie's a proven clutch performer too.
Yes.
So that's one thing I think you were still asking earlier in the year with Terrence, and even now obviously without Terrence, does Illinois have some of those proven guys that you know late in games, big games, crunch time that you can go to and has been effective and successful in those stretches? So Boo Buie's one of those guys.
Yeah, the more I think about it, though, the more I might even talk myself into Tyson Walker, though. I don't know.
He's another guy that's had some
really
clutch
good. He's
too.
been really clutch, and just thinking about some of the lineups you could play with the shooting, and you just clear the floor out with Coleman, Walker, and Guerrier, Harmon, whoever it is, and then let DeMask go to work, and then all of a sudden you got Tyson Walker sitting in the weak side corner ready to pop a three or something?
Yep.
Oh, man. I don't know. That's a really good question.
It is.
There's some really good point guards or just lead guards in this conference.
Yeah, and I think obviously Illini fans hoping that Doug McDaniel's not on their brain when it comes to this question by the end of tonight. You got Illinois in Ann Arbor, 7:30 Central tip-off. I believe it's on FS1. Is that correct?
I think so.
I'll double-check that, but I think that is what I have here. I'll pull up my preview to double-check here. But, yes, Doug McDaniel is able to go tonight because it's a home game. By the way, yes, FS1, Kevin Kugler and Stephen Bardo on the call, 7:30 Central from Chrysler Center. But McDaniel was out late last week against Maryland on the road because he's got a 6-game road suspension. That will put him out of road games until very late in February, but he's able to play at home, which, yes, it's weird because I don't remember anyone ever doing this. I know in theory it
Wait, hold on one second. Why do academics stop 6 games in, though?
Yeah, fair enough.
Oh, all of a sudden classes end after 6 games, and he all of a sudden can go on the road again?
Maybe his grades are up by then. I don't know. I guess if they're not, he could.
You got to take some type of stand here, right? It's either he's fully ineligible, we're going to do the back and forth thing, but it's every road game, so you commit to this program, or he just plays.
That's fair.
6 games?
That's fair. I think that if he was fully ineligible, he wouldn't be able to play, period.
Right. But
if he was NCAA ineligible.
So this is what I've been wondering about. So clearly he's not NCAA ineligible, which I thought was like the original rumor was that he was just going to be fully ineligible.
Fully ruled out, right.
So he must have gotten barely across the NCAA threshold, but Michigan, being the high-tier academic institution that they are, was not happy with his GPA and said, all right, we got to issue something.
Apparently that's the way it's gone. And I know Michigan here recently, a lot of people in the college basketball world, especially those that pay attention in the offseason to the transfer portal, understanding that Michigan maybe has different standards academically than some places, where a guy like Terrence Shannon Jr. wasn't able to get in ultimately, as he was seriously considering going to Ann Arbor. Caleb Love was committed there and then didn't pass through admissions, and he had to wind up, where did he end up? Oh, yeah, Arizona. They're pretty good. So it worked out for him pretty well. I know some on the text line. We'll get to it as far as Terrence Shannon Jr. I haven't heard anything in terms of I haven't seen anything posted as far as his hearing today in Douglas County over there in Kansas. He was due to make a appearance and to have just the kind of the initial court appearance as far as his processing there, and as we understood it, it was going to be him making his plea of not guilty and then setting a new date to then go ahead with trial, I would imagine, or pre-trial. Again, I'm not a legal expert as far as the exact terms that are supposed to be used, but that's there is no update on that as far as we know. We'll keep you in touch. I'll look and see if there is anything we can provide on that front. There is something in terms of Champagne Showers, which is a website out there that did a FOIA request, and it was interesting some of the documentation that they were able to come up with, some emails, some text exchanges. I'm not going to read through all of that. You can find them on Twitter, looking up Champagne Showers, and I wanted to touch on that, and I guess now that we're here, we might as well go there. As far as anything new, one bit of information that is new in terms of being public and providing an exact timeline is that we know that there was a DNA search warrant involving Terrence back. This was passed along to the UIPD, the University of Illinois Police Department, via email. So it is a written document that has obviously an ability to be FOIA'd, and there's proof of it. So on the September 26th, it was passed along to Grant Briggs, who's a detective sergeant with the UIPD, that there was to be discussed a DNA search warrant regarding a UIUC student for a sexual assault. So that is involved. There's also further documentation and text, like I said, that involves a discussion of this DNA taking and swab, I would imagine, taking place at Ubben. I know it was discussed of it being involved, that it having happened in Brad Underwood's office. So I think, as far as what I've gone through it, I've read through it, a full time once and have skimmed back through it again. There's nothing that, like, in terms of like the Illinois side of this lying about what they knew and when they knew it, were they entirely maybe forthcoming or using the exact wording as they could have, like Josh Whitman saying that through his press conference that they were, number one, not aware of anything beyond improper touching on the front end of this. Now, could improper touching be another way of saying an alleged sexual assault? Possibly. So there is that. Also, we don't know that there is no email that is assigned to Josh Whitman as far as this exact one that we find in the FOIA that's been published here. So I know that Whitman voiced that pretty much all of his communication regarding this case, this investigation, was through the UIPD and what the Lawrence Police Department was passing on through them. There is documentation that it was told to the UIPD that this was a situation regarding an alleged sexual assault. So did that exact wording get communicated to U of I imagine, in some capacity, if not fully? Yes. And again, I don't want to sit here and speak for Josh Whitman, but even if it was told to him it was an alleged sexual assault, it was not a charge at that point. So I think that their policy and how they respond would still hold up. Them not having enough information at that point to act on and to put Terrence in a situation where he's suspended and have the panel review and whatnot. At that point, it's just an allegation. He's cooperating with the warrant and with the investigation. So there's really not a whole lot else to add as far as that goes. Everything else is pretty well in line with what we already know. And there is no update as of right before the show. I checked. I've been refreshing the.
I do see an update now here on Twitter.
Okay, go ahead.
It's from Mitch Gilfillan. He's a lawyer from Peoria who's been covering the case on Twitter a little bit here. Says, Kansas court update from January 18th. The hearing today was a first appearance. All parties besides the state/district attorney appeared on Zoom. Formal reading of charges and potential punishments were waived. The preliminary hearing is now set for February 23rd at 1:30 p.m. So that is, I believe, all that came from it.
So essentially nothing.
Nothing except a preliminary hearing date set for February 23rd.
Which is near the end of the regular season.
That's right.
So I don't know. It would take a lawyer to answer this question in terms of the exact process of now that you go into a preliminary hearing. Prior to that is then discovery opened up to where there's sharing of what each side has at their disposal or not. I don't know that. If you're a lawyer out there listening, feel free to weigh in on that. And look, we got plenty of time between now and then to figure some things out. On the note of the TRO, which is a little bit more, I would say, time sensitive, but really not, because there hasn't been an exact date or timeline of there needs to be a ruling from Judge Lawless after the hearing in Springfield last Friday to say by now she needs to say the TRO is denied or approved. We still, as of now, have not heard anything regarding that. There has not been a ruling as of right before the show. In terms of that, in terms of how that goes. So that would really give us a clear picture on what his immediate status is. Obviously, in the meantime, he has continued to be suspended. And if the TRO is granted, then that suspension would effectively be lifted, and then it would be up to Illinois to make that decision whether or not to play him. And then, of course, that TRO lasts 10 days. There's an extension of another 10 days that could go out, and then a ruling on an injunction would be having to go underway and really kind of have some finality to that. So in the meantime, we mentioned it yesterday. The news has been put out that Terrence Shannon and his legal team have subpoenaed the DNA evidence. So naturally, as I mentioned, with a DNA collection happening in late September, there are the questions of when did the results come in terms of knowing if it was aligning with Terrence or not? Was that, I'm asking this question and I'm assigning myself some homework to try to find an answer if I can, as far as, is there any legal obligation for then the police department, the prosecution, through the investigation, for them to tell Terrence or his attorneys that what those results were? So would there be a situation where Terrence and his team, his legal team, would already know what those results are before the subpoena? I know what's been said out there. I know it's been voiced by people in terms of what they think they know. And again, I don't know as far as what those DNA results are or said to be. So I can't confirm that. I'm trying to figure out if there is a legal obligation or anything that can be firmly confirmed of that being shared. But at the very least, through the subpoena, they will be provided that within a 14-day window. And then I would imagine if it does not line up, if there is no DNA evidence or they didn't find that it was a match with Terrence, that his legal team would probably be pretty aggressively voicing that, not only in court, but probably even publicly as they shape the narrative around this. And one thing I would say to kind of conclude my thoughts here, and we can only go so far because I don't want to speculate, and obviously I don't want to speculate too much, and obviously we got a basketball game to talk about. But one thing I've wondered about is if they get that subpoena when it comes back and they have the evidence presented, and if it says the DNA did not match with the victim swab, and if essentially the DNA did not prove anything as far as Terrence goes, would then Terrence be able to submit that to the conduct committee as new evidence or new information?
And would it change anything?
So I know that the conduct committee has said that they would reconvene if there was new information or a new development and potentially update their ruling. It still seems hard to believe, even with that bit of evidence, although, of course, you could stack it up if you're a Terrence side and say no DNA, no video, no witness to this point that we know of, and say, okay, this is my case to the panel to lift the suspension. They, of course, could then cede and say, look, you're still charged with rape, and until you're not, we're not going to overrule that or just step over and say, we're just going to lift the suspension and we believe you in that sense. So I don't know that, but I think that part of it is a little bit interesting.
And I think from a next step perspective, now that we have this update that a preliminary hearing set for February 23rd, that would theoretically be a time in court where, let's say, again, not to speculate, but if they do get the DNA evidence and it doesn't match the Terrence, and that pair that with the video evidence that they apparently don't have and whatever, and maybe there's more cards to be played by the district attorney at that time, but that could potentially be a date where a judge could throw the case out for lack of evidence at that point on February 23rd. Because I think what you guys were discussing before was this was more of an arraignment and a plea of not guilty, and the likelihood of anything being decided was low. But a preliminary hearing, from my understanding, is where evidence begins to be presented, and there could theoretically be an opportunity for, hey, if there really isn't anything, then, hey, maybe the case does get thrown out. And at that point, there's still a college basketball season to be played and March Madness and whatnot. But that's just something that I would think about now, knowing that we have a date for that.
That's a good point, and I'm glad you brought that up. If you want to weigh in, you can, 217-359-2255 on the U of I Atlanta Link text line. Let's talk some hoops. Illinois and Michigan tonight in Ann Arbor. We're going to catch up with Zach Shaw, the Michigan insider, works for 24/7 Sports, covering the Wolverines. Get his take on this Michigan basketball team, Juwan Howard. I also want to talk a little Jim Harbaugh with him before we let him off the phone, the Tapman's Towing phone line, of course. Just his thoughts and gatherings of now that Jim is interviewed for the Chargers and the Falcons, what the temperature is there in Ann Arbor. So look forward to catching up with Zach on the other side of this break. Stick with us. This is The Drive.
Ready for some much-needed pampering and girl time? We've got just the place. Call to schedule your very own private girls' night out at Merle Norman Cosmetic Studio. We're talking express facials, makeovers, and personalized beauty tips. Our masters of makeup will give you and your friends a chance to find the right foundation, learn what works for your skin, and rock some hot new looks. Call and book now at 217-359-8100 at Merle Norman. Find us on social media at Merle Norman Cosmetics, Champaign.
When Ross went out, I always told him, be careful. And that was the last time I got to see him.
Because someone didn't slow down and move over. Ross had on a bright orange shirt with reflective stripes the night he was killed.
He always had that smile. He just lit up the room when he came in.
Slow down and move over when you see flashing lights. Everybody is somebody.
When you see lights flashing, use caution passing. Let's all go home safe tonight.
ILLINI. Cheer on the Illini and Pia's. The pregame fun starts at Pia's Sports Bar and Grill. Pia serves up its famous 10-ounce Slugger Burger along with great wings and so much more. Enjoy 350 22-ounce light and course light drafts every home and away Illini game. Watch the game at Pia's or ride the free shuttle to all home games. You'll find it all at Pia's with live video gaming, sports, food, drinks, and fun. See you at Pia's, West Springfield Avenue in Champaign.
A tradition of excellence over 150 years in the making. At Busey Bank, we're committed to building relationships that span generations. Wherever your journey in life leads you, we are with you along the way, creating a legacy for you and your family. Busey Bank, building business, growing wealth since 1868, proud to be the official bank of the Fighting Illini. Member FDIC.
Have you ever looked at a junk truck and said, man, that truck is pretty? Two men in a junk truck. Trucks are pretty. They're pretty big, so they can handle large jobs. They're pretty reliable. Two Men in a Truck has been recognized as a trusted leader in the moving industry for over 35 years. Now we are proud to offer that same reliability to junk removal, and they're pretty fast. When you're ready to let some things go and that you don't need, you don't want to wait 3 weeks. You want it gone now. Go to twomeninAjunkTruck.com and make room for what matters most.
At Pards in Urbana, the boots just keep on coming. They're known for their huge collection of men's cowboy boots, women's cowgirl boots, kids' boots, and even shoes. If you're searching for top footwear brands, look no further than Pards. They carry a wide variety, including Ariat, Dan Post, Smoky Mountain, Roper, Double H, and more. And if socks or accessories are what you need, they've got all your high-quality essentials. Since 1968, Pards has been serving their customers with high-quality merchandise. And if you haven't been to Pards in a while, a lot has changed. Go check them out just off University Avenue in Urbana.
Bet like the pros with the world's largest sports book right at your fingertips. Circus Sports is now available in Illinois. Hi, I'm Derek Stevens. I've been a lifelong sports bettor and I'm the owner of Circus Sports. We're excited that the Circus Sports app is now ready for action. Experience big app bets with high betting limits, tight money line splits, and more. Now you can download, fund, and bet like a pro from anywhere in Illinois. Download your new bookie today at circusports.com. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
Two Men in a Truck has been recognized as a trusted leader in the moving industry for over 35 years. Now we are proud to offer that same reliability to junk removal, introducing Two Men and a Junk Truck to the Champaign area. Our goal at Two Men and a Junk Truck is to help you make room for what matters most. We can make your garage, attic, basement, house, or business look bigger with our furniture or appliance removal. Contact us today at twomenjunkTruck.com.
Kelsey Furniture in downtown Tuscola sells Tempur-Pedic beds. What's it like?
I'm going to tell you right now, Stevie, that thing is the best thing I've ever slept on in my life. My wife and I both have said we've never had better night's sleep. And the people at Kelsey's were fantastic. Brian is the guy that helped us. You know, as much as I did my research, he has a world of knowledge about beds themselves. Oh, man, it's like sleeping on a cloud, man.
Kelsey Furniture, downtown Tuscola.
Back on the drive with Sam Piper, ESPN Radio 93.5. Derek Piper and Kyle Tosk today. Let's talk some Illinois and Michigan. in Ann Arbor, Chrysler Center tonight, 7:30 Central tip there as the Illini go on the road to battle the Wolverines. Let's catch up with the Michigan side of things. Zach Shaw for Michigan Insider with 24/7 Sports joining us now on the Tapman's Towing phone line. Zach, how you doing? Thanks for joining us.
I'm good. Good to hear from you guys, and I'm sure you guys are a little more excited about tonight's game than Michigan fans are.
I was going to say, does it even feel like basketball season over there, or is it still a party from the old national title?
Yeah, it's a party in some sense, but also I think fans are refreshing the message boards, refreshing Twitter, trying to catch up on the Jim Harbaugh side of things. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, I'm sure Illinois fans have been through it with different sports as well. But, yeah, when the team is – I mean, it's not even February, and I would argue Michigan's already kind of out of the tournament picture. So it's a different kind of coverage. I mean, I've covered a lot of the John Beilein teams. I covered some of those early Juwan Howard teams. I mean, there's always kind of that all right, now we turn our attention to basketball. And I think football fans or Michigan fans in general are kind of trying to push it down as much as they can, trying to see if they can do something else with their time.
I do want to ask you more about Harbaugh before we let you go, but let's start with the game tonight and just kind of maybe big picture with this Michigan program on the hoop side. Where do you think things stand with Juwan Howard? I was reading Brendan Quinn's piece today on The Athletic talking about, of course, there's plenty of rumblings and speculation. Is this going to be Juwan's last year in Ann Arbor? Not that I saw Brendan Quinn quote anybody or have any said sources he's definitely going to stay or anything, but I know his feeling was that he thinks that Juwan, if he wants to, would still be in Ann Arbor. So what's kind of your temperature of it, both dealing with the fan base and how they feel and just overall maybe viewpoint on, do you think Juwan is long for Ann Arbor or will survive this season if they don't make the tournament or even the NIT?
Yeah, Brendan's obviously very plugged in. I think he made some good points. And I think basketball is a little different than football at Michigan, and just that the boosters are not kind of attaching their pride and sense of, self. I guess they're not attaching their egos to the basketball team's success like they do the football team. Mm-hmm. You know, people talk about football school, basketball school. One perk to being a basketball coach at a football school is, you tend to get a longer leash because the boosters aren't lining up to pay your buyout in the same way that they might for a football coach who's struggling in the same way. And then, Ward Manuel, I think in his whole tenure, I was just having this discussion with local radio affiliates, and he definitely is someone who puts a lot of trust in the coaches that he hires. It's kind of funny because you could argue the best thing he has done as athletic director was trust Jim Harbaugh to figure it out in 2020. I mean, it's kind of funny that his best action was technically inaction, but I do think that, for better or for worse, he is someone who believes in the coaches that he employs, that they can figure it out more so than maybe the court of public opinion. But I do think the temperature is kind of hot because I think the difference between Jim Harbaugh when he was on the hot seat, when John Beilein was on the hot seat, is I think Juwan Howard, I don't know. One, I don't think either coach struggled as much as Juwan Howard's struggling right now. But then two, I think, you got to avoid stepping in it from the PR standpoint. How many transfers can you take and then have to sheepishly admit you didn't check all the boxes from admissions, or how many times can you, have either off-court or I guess technically on-court incidents that become national news? I mean, it's beyond just not having a good season because it is fair to point out, they've lost a lot of players to the NBA. They, losing Hunter Dickinson at the time that they did, you can't really add a recruit in his place. So, some of it's not his fault, but at the same time, I think he is struggling in ways that might be hard for Michigan to really justify. And then the attendance is down. I mean, basketball, it's never going to be like football, but you can't have half full Big Ten games, half full arenas for Big Ten games at 7 p.m. on a weekend or whatever. I mean, you got to sell tickets to some degree. So I think the temperature is a little warmer. And then the factor I would throw in there that intrigues me is Jace Howard is a senior. He's going to get his degree. So that would mean that theoretically Juwan Howard coached both of his kids. They accomplished what they were going to accomplish at Michigan. And so I don't know if Michigan would necessarily fire Juwan Howard because that's a tough tough way to treat someone who led you to an Elite Eight, led you to another Sweet 16, you know, was a member of the Fab Five, you know, but is there a mutual parting of ways? That I think is a little bit more conceivable to me, because I think he is a coach that would be better in the NBA, and I think he understands that, you know, this job's pretty challenging. And so I think the question would be, you know, does he have a plan for like a reset of doing things differently than they've been done the last 3 years? Or would it be easier for him and Michigan to maybe just kind of mutually separate and agree to part ways after this season? Hard to tell. It kind of depends on the next 14 games, but certainly, I don't know. I think fans are reaching their boiling point, you know, in terms of the hot seat. I think it's frustrating. I'm sure Illinois fans have dealt with it in sports as well, where it just does not feel like, you know, you're going into games against Illinois and Purdue, two teams you used to go toe-to-toe with and were like big nationally televised rivalry games, and I don't think Michigan fans feel like they have much of a shot.
Yeah, end of the John Gross tenure on basketball side, way too many times on the football side. Lovie Smith, most recently for sure. Zach Shaw is our guest on the Tapman's Towing phone line. He writes for the Michigan Insider, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. When you think about this season, Michigan was coming off of a 5-game losing streak. They snapped that on Monday in a win against Ohio State. What has been going wrong, in your opinion, with this current team, and did they figure anything out in that Ohio State game that might carry over into tonight, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think in terms of figuring things out, I do think I saw a slightly better defensive effort, you know, against Ohio State, and it helps to be at home. You know, a lot of their losses, for as much as, you know, I kind of rag on Michigan, they have played a tough schedule with most of their marquee games being away from home. I think the only high major team to play in Ann Arbor, I guess Minnesota and Indiana are the only two that I can think of. I mean, they played in the Bahamas, they played St. John's in the Garden, they played at Oregon, at Iowa, at the Palestra. I mean, they've been all over the place. So I do think being at home can help just the mental maturity of when the other team makes a run, can you stop the run and start your own run of your own? So I think they're learning that defense can help on that front. So, you know, it's certainly better, but I do think some of the problems are still there. I mean, this is a team that kind of runs a 6 or 7 man rotation, depending on who's healthy, and you can go look at the box scores. They've been up double digits at halftime, and in the second half even, in a lot of these games, but I do think they run out of gas. That's what happened against Indiana, Florida, Minnesota, Penn State, Oregon. I mean, these are all games that you could argue Michigan, quote, should have won. They didn't, and it just seemed like those last 5-10 minutes is when it really started to fade. So, I think they figured I think they're slowly figuring out the defensive mindset, because I think a lot of it's mental. I mean, athletically they should be just as good as anyone defensively, but I think a lot of it's kind of the court awareness, the mental discipline that kind of wanting to be really good at defense. They're still trying to figure that out, but ultimately, I mean, honestly, I mentioned all the teams that they have leads against, and I know that doesn't mean much when the final score is the other way, but I do think that this is a team with good offensive firepower. I think they can score from all 5 positions. I think they can shoot from all 5 positions. So I think, you know, if they can start to figure out that defense, start to maybe have a freshman or have, you know, a player off the bench kind of start to work their way into that rotation, just to give guys a break, because, you know, Doug McDaniel, I know he's got his academic situation to sort out, but he's leading the Big Ten in minutes per game, and they've got, I think, 5 guys in the top 14 of that list. So it's kind of crazy, the lack of depth. And I think against Ohio State, I think they survived it, and I think defense helps. I think being at home helps, but still, it's hard to make it through the Big Ten if you don't really play that good a defense and you don't have a lot of depth.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Obviously, the Doug McDaniel situation, it's been highly talked about and poked fun at, you know, around the Big Ten or the country and whatnot. But a really good player, especially, you know, when he's on. He 26 against St. John's at the Garden, 30-plus in games against Oregon, and another one this season as well. what have you seen from him? How dangerous can he be when he has it going, and what do you kind of expect from him? How do you feel? I know I'm loading up this with a bunch of side questions, but how do you feel like he's handled this situation? And then what are you kind of expecting from him tonight as far as what he can bring to the table against the Illini?
Yeah, I think, having talked to coaches even before he arrived at Michigan, I think there was always a belief that he just really, really, really enthusiastic basketball player. Like, that was always kind of the word, or the high energy, and I think that's he offers that spark for Michigan. I mean, in a lot of ways, he's the quarterback, right, at point guard, and I think he's able to bring the energy. He's able to push the pace when it's time to. I think he's able to, he's starting to learn kind of the nuances of being a point guard. He really started to turn it on last year, actually, when they were kind of sort of making a run, ended up not making it all the way, but, they had a nice finish to the season, had some nice quality wins, and I feel like he played a big role in that. So I think, as a player, I think they've always loved his attitude. They've always loved his coachability, his work ethic. I think, in terms of the academic side of things, I don't know everything about his situation, but from what I had heard, I actually don't hate this compromise. I think it's in some ways there shouldn't be excuses. If you're ineligible or if you fall short of the academic standards, you should face consequences. But I think you're seeing more and more around the country that maybe not this unorthodox, but I think you're seeing more of the NCAA and schools saying, hey, maybe instead of wiping out your whole semester, is there some way that we can get more from you from an academic standpoint without ruining your career, without ruining your season, without ruining, punishing the entire team? You've got coaches' jobs at stake, the fans. So I guess we'll see how this goes. It's definitely unorthodox. I don't think I've covered a situation like this, but talking to people on the academic side of things, both at Michigan and the NCAA, I think there's an effort to be a little less punitive when it comes to the academic punishments and try to be a little bit more, the term they use is restorative justice, which is kind of, trying to establish a consequence, but maybe not one that has this giant ripple effect that ends up impacting a lot of people who really didn't have any control over your situation. So, I've heard nothing but good things about his character and his energy level and his effort in practice. I think that played a big role in his freshman to sophomore year jump. I think, Michigan has a pretty good history of getting freshmen to kind of blossom as sophomores, and I think he's kind of the latest just because his work ethic was there. I think his commitment was there. I think he, maybe a little bit more time on the homework this semester, and on those road trips, or while his team's on the road trips, and he'll be. I think he's got captain potential. And as far as on the court, I think he really helps this offense flow. They definitely function a little bit. I mean, they don't really have a backup point guard, so that's part of it. But they function a lot better with him on the court, and I think he does a really nice job kind of feeding the machine, because Michigan, I think their biggest strength is they have 5 guys who can score and who can shoot at any given time. And so I think he does a nice job kind of finding the open man and kind of keeping that offense flowing.
A few more minutes here with Zach Shaw with the Michigan Insider. You can follow him on Twitter at @Zach Shaw. No Hunter Dickinson, obviously, in this battle anymore. Illinois saw him earlier in an exhibition game when Kansas came to town. But do you feel like there's any rivalry left in this clash between the two sides? I know that Hunter even said last year it's hard to have a rivalry when it's one-sided, but what do you think on that? Juwan has yet to beat Illinois. I know Illinois fans, if they're told to think happy thoughts, that might be the one thing that pops into their head that makes them smile again. But I know through the years when players cycle out, sometimes the friction on the court probably then dissipates. Do you think that's probably the case now with not as many familiar faces from those years, a few back when the Big Ten title was in contention and whatnot?
Yeah, I do think it's a little bit less, and this is not meant to be a slight at Illinois fans, because I think there's a lot of history between Illinois and Michigan basketball. But if you ask Michigan basketball fans, who are the biggest rivals, I don't think Illinois comes up. And that's,
right.
Again, that's just if you ask Michigan fans. And so, for a few years though, I think Hunter, and then obviously the Terrence Shannon, him almost enrolling at Michigan and that whole thing. I think that fueled it. I'm certain Juwan Howard wants this win. He understands his record against Illinois, and it's not something that's like on his resume. Again, I don't know if Michigan fans view it quite the same way, but at the same time, he's gone up against Brad Underwood several times, and he's had good teams, and Brad Underwood's had good teams, and Michigan has yet to win in that situation. So, I think the big thing though is this. I think Michigan players really view this as a chance to, because the Michigan players, no matter what I believe, no matter what fans believe, Michigan players believe they're really close to being a top group team in the Big Ten. They feel like they've played a lot of good teams close. They have 2 quadrant 1 wins, which is more than some teams that are in the tournament picture right now. So I think there's a belief that even though they've had some slip ups, they've had games where they just didn't have it. They believe at their best they can compete with anybody, and I believe this is their first game against a currently ranked team, and so for them, I think they're looking at this as a chance to kind of prove themselves right. And so there's definitely going to be. I mean, I don't know what the fan crowd is going to be like. The crowds have not been very good all year for Michigan, just for a number of reasons. But I think there will be some extra juice in this game, just because I think Michigan players realize, like, hey, this is a prime opportunity. Because if you win this game, fans might start rethinking what you can be this season.
Last one for you, Zach. Kind of to come full circle and return to the Harbaugh conversation. What's kind of your read on it in terms of where you think his head is at? I know that's a tough question, but he has interviewed for the Chargers, the Falcons. We know that. We know there's been reporting as far as what he might be asking for in terms of a contract with Michigan, and there's been speculation regarding would it include a clause that would prevent him from being fired from any findings within the NCAA. We saw something similar to that in basketball with Bill Self. What do you think about that, and then just the potential of him possibly hopping to the NFL?
Yeah, I think the interest in him going to the NFL is very high. He wants to win a Super Bowl. He's said that before, and I think in his mind, if he closed the book on his time at Michigan, you can't go out much higher than that. 15-0 national champion, 3 straight wins over Ohio State, 3 straight Big Ten titles. So I don't think he's opposed to returning to Michigan, but I do think he understands he's 60 years old. This is probably, maybe, you never know, but maybe his last truly good shot at landing a good NFL job. I think, but what I've heard over the past week is that he's going to be kind of picky about it. He's not just taking any job he can get. He wants pretty high salary. He wants a lot of roster control. He's not going to be, he knows he can't pick his GM, but he wants to have it be a GM that he's compatible with. So I think the interesting question is has he overplayed his hand? Because I think he's a very appealing candidate. He's a proven successful coach at the college and pro level. But, there are other coaches out there. And I think, the Los Angeles Chargers are the ones that keep getting brought up. They interviewed Mike Vrabel today. I think he's a very good, qualified head coach. I think if they hired him, they could expect to make the playoffs fairly soon. They're going to interview Dan Quinn, another guy with a track record. So my hunch is still that Harbaugh goes to the NFL, but I do kind of wonder if his specifications, his pickiness, not necessarily a surprise, that he wants things done his way. That's kind of how he's always done it. Michigan with open arms about it, and now they're reaping the benefits of it. But yeah, I do. That's like the unverified hunch in me is that I think he wants to go pro. I think there's a market for him in the pros. I still kind of lean toward him going pro, but I think these NFL teams are also going to look at other candidates and wonder, hey, this guy's going to come and he's not going to have all these demands, or this guy would sign on for a cheaper deal, and we can pick whoever we want as GM. So I do kind of wonder. That's always the fine line you walk is if you're a coaching candidate, how high do you set those demands to be? And but I think Michigan would love to keep him, so they're going to keep trying. They're going to try to meet all of his demands. It's just a matter of if the NFL meets his NFL demands. I feel like he would rather move on to the NFL this year. It's just a matter of if the right team with the right roster and GM in place, gives him that opportunity.
Great stuff. Zach Shaw, once again, read his stuff at the Michigan Insider with the 24/7 Sports Network. You can follow him on Twitter at _Zach Shaw. Zach, really appreciate you taking the time out to join us today. Best of luck covering and surviving Harbaugh Watch, and try to enjoy it a little bit, all right?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
All right, great. Zach, really appreciate it. Zach Shaw on the Tapman's Towing phone line. Good stuff from him, both on the hoops and the football side. He said it there. His feel is that Jim Harbaugh will probably make the leap to the NFL. It would be very, very interesting. The pivot, of course, I could have follow-up questioned that one with Zach. Where would Michigan go from here on the football side? But we just didn't have that much time. So
I'd have to imagine it'd be their offensive or defensive coordinator.
Makes
Especially
sense.
Jerome Moore, who coached him for, 7 games this year?
Oh, yeah, that's right. The guy that was crying, right?
Yeah,
on
the guy who cried.
post-game
No,
interview.
this is for you, Jim.
It's for you, Jim.
I think that's probably where they'd go because you already got the ties and the respect of the locker room, and
that's a good call. I'm glad you brought that
recruiting,
up.
all that.
Yep.
I do think I think he's going to go to the Chargers. I do. I think that'd be the perfect.
Would be a great marriage,
perfect
wouldn't
hire
it?
for them.
Yep. Him and Justin Herbert. I do want to, as we go along, talk a little bit more about the coaching carousel that's going on in the NFL. Of course, you have some offensive coordinators being interviewed for the Bears. A little bit of a side note in the note of some bigger names like a Bill Belichick, his second interview with Atlanta. I mentioned that Harbaugh's interviewed with Atlanta. What's Philly going to do? Mike McCarthy's staying put in Dallas. There's a lot to touch on there as far as that goes. I know that our guy, who I say that kind of in jest, a little bit of a joke, Colin Cowherd said that on the note of Cliff Kingsbury, Lon's boy, who interviewed for the OC with the
I know
Bears.
you're fired up about that interview.
Oh, boy. Yeah. No, thank you. That relationship between him and Kyler, it was pretty toxic. It was very visible to see. It wasn't hard to, you had to read through between the lines. You had to read these articles that had unnamed sources. They were shouting at each other, mostly Kyler. That just might be who Kyler is, but it didn't seem to work that well. Definitely not end very well between those two. And now you want to pair him with, and I'm assuming a lot of people will
if they
assume
hire him, it's Caleb.
It's Caleb, yeah.
There seems like a couple, based on who the Bears have interviewed.
Greg Roman would be Justin Fields.
There's half of these guys are paired with Fields and half of these guys are paired with Williams, and there's maybe a few that you could work with either. It just there seems like obvious.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Pairings there.
And there's a few that just are from the Colts tree. So let's just do that because Eberflus is from the Colts organization and Bill Polian pretty much strong-armed the Bears into hiring either him or Jim Caldwell. And here we are. So let me ask you this. We've taken this long, so we'll catch a break here and do the top of next hour, continue our conversations. But before we catch a break, let me ask you this. Should I be bitter? And not to say that he would end up in Chicago, but of course he wore the Bears uniform at one point. If Harbaugh is obviously openly available, should I be mad the Bears didn't fire Matt Eberflus and make a full-fledged effort to try to bring him to Chicago, where there would be a good situation because you have the number 1 overall pick. You get to do whatever he wanted in terms of drafting a new quarterback or keeping Fields and a lot of assets and whatnot. Not to say that it's for sure better than L.A. with Justin Herbert and whatnot, but I think there's more tied up money there as far as the Chargers go and maybe more wiggle room to do and build it how you want in Chicago. Should I be mad the Bears didn't open up that possibility?
I think a little bit. It's interesting, though. My view on the Bears situation is this. You either go all out and clean house and start over, or you run it back and have some continuity there. My view is that if they're going to stick with Fields, then it's fine to stick with Eberflus, and you that pairing can move forward. And if you don't build a playoff team next year, then everyone's out. Or if you want to restart with Caleb Williams, give him an offensive head coach and a new coordinator and just a whole new regime there in Chicago. Not regime's the wrong word because that would imply front office, but a whole new coaching staff quarterback pairing. And if they do end up drafting Caleb 1, then I do think that I would view it as a mistake to bring Eberflus back as kind of a lame duck head coach there with a new quarterback.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So in that case, I would say you probably shouldn't be upset because you want Fields back.
I do.
I think you should be fine that they're.
I know Scott on the U of I Line Link text line agrees with me, right? Justin Fields train, he's with me. I'm just kidding. He's team drafted quarterback, so I'm not saying it's crazy or wrong. I like my opinion. I think I'm right. But anyways, we'll talk more NFL head coaching situation, more Illinois, Michigan coming up on the other side of this break. Stick with us. This is The Drive.
You're listening to WSJK ESPN 93.5 Tuscola, Champaign-Urbana, your home for the St. Louis Cardinals.
Security plays defense. On Lisa Brady, Fox News. Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas says a migrant surge isn't just about the U.S.
What we are experiencing at our southern border reflects a challenge that is not unique to our border.
Speaking to the U.S. Conference of Mayors, while a House committee was holding a second hearing on impeaching Mayorkas, hearing from two mothers, one telling lawmakers her daughter was killed by a gang member in the U.S. illegally, another died from a fentanyl overdose. The House just passing a short-term spending bill to avoid a government shutdown. It passed the Senate earlier today and now heads to the president's desk. That bill pushes the budget deadline from tomorrow into March. 5 days left to the first in the nation primary in New Hampshire, where former President Trump is holding steady in a Suffolk University poll with 50% support, a 14-point lead over second place Nikki Haley.
We wanted to be strong in Iowa. We did that. We want to be stronger in New Hampshire. We're going to do that. We want to go to my sweet state of South Carolina, be even stronger there. It's about just continuing to move up.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, a distant third in that new poll at 6%, already beginning to focus more on South Carolina's primary next month. No Labels is still trying to get on the ballot in all 50 states to field a possible unity ticket.
Already, No Labels has taken action to get itself on the ballots in multiple states, including swing states, Arizona, Florida, Nevada. But other groups not so thrilled with this idea. The left-leaning group Move On says, quote, every dollar funneled to the No Labels Super PAC is a contribution to the Trump campaign.
Fox's Mark Meredith. No Labels filed a complaint with the Justice Department today seeking an investigation of what it calls illegal efforts by groups, including Move On, to block its attempt to secure ballot access and subvert Americans' voting rights. America is listening to Fox News.
Major phone carriers make you sign contracts with rigid data plans to trap you into a kind of forced phonogamy. Sounds pretty insecure if you ask me. At Consumer Cellular, we believe in a more consensual and healthy form of phonogamy, free of contracts and more flexible to your data needs. This way, you stick around not because we force you to with contracts and fees, but because you love our phone plans. Like ardently love our phone plans. Phonogamously. Consumer Cellular. When freedom calls, we're here to answer. Call us at 1-888-FREEDOM.
To avoid digital threats, turn on NordVPN. It's trusted by millions of users. Just visit NordVPN.com. One of the fastest VPNs on Earth will block web trackers, malicious websites, and malware-ridden downloads. It will also encrypt your internet traffic while maintaining a smooth connection. So improve your digital privacy and protection against hackers with one simple click. Get the special deal at NordVPN.com and enjoy safer internet daily. NordVPN. Cybersecurity built for every day.
The U.S. Attorney General says the Uvalde community deserves better, releasing the Justice Department report on the response to the 2022 school shooting that left 19 young students and 2 teachers dead.
The law enforcement response to the mass shooting at Robb Elementary was a failure.
Attorney General Merrick Garland says the most significant failure was transitioning from an active shooter to a barricaded subject response soon after the first officers arrived, and that many of them didn't know who was in charge. A federal appeals court sides with Second Amendment advocates in a case challenging gun limits in Pennsylvania.
The Third U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in Philadelphia ruling that Pennsylvania laws barring 18 to 20-year-olds from carrying firearms in public during a state of emergency are unconstitutional. Siding with 2 gun rights groups who filed a lawsuit in 2020 challenging state restrictions, the Second Amendment Foundation and the Firearms Policy Coalition. Folks must be 21 years old to apply for a license to carry a concealed firearm in Pennsylvania. The court finding the Second Amendment protects an individual's right to carry a handgun in public for self-defense, citing a 2020 Supreme Court decision which sided with advocates who challenged gun laws in New York.
Fox's Christine Goodwin. More Super Bowl entertainers unveiled.
Reba McEntire will sing the national anthem while Post Malone will perform America the Beautiful for next month's Super Bowl. The performance will take place February 11th at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas before the championship matchup and halftime show featuring Usher. Andra Day will also perform Lift Every Voice and Sing as part of the pregame performances that will air on CBS. Each of the singers will be paired with American Sign Language performances. Jay-Z's Rock Nation has been producing the show for the past several years. Michelle Polino, Fox News.
A rally on Wall Street in the end, the Dow up 202. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News.
Hello again, everyone. Let's check weather for East Central Illinois, Champaign-Urbana vicinity. Little Clipper system making its way through the area with a bit of light snow and flurry activity, according to perhaps even a short range to the north and east of Champaign for this morning. Highs up near 27 with a light day snow shower. A little stronger Clipper system comes down the pike here overnight tonight. Turns blustery, very cold, 1 to as much as 3 inches. That higher number to the north and east of Champaign and a low down to 10 above. We will be blowing and drifting of some of that snow on the overnight and through tomorrow morning at least, with a few morning snow flurries, partly sunny and turning sharply cold in the afternoon. 13 in the morning, then slowly falling temperatures in the afternoon, down near 0 for tomorrow night. Very cold and a partly cloudy lighter wind day on Saturday at 11. Late in the day Sunday, 21. Then milder days are ahead and wetter too, but not before a round of some freezing rain for Monday afternoon into Tuesday morning. 31 the high on Monday, upper 30s on Tuesday, then more rain for Thursday and Friday, as well as Wednesday, with high temperatures between 45 and 50. For Stevie J Broadcasting, I'm meteorologist Greg Solgay.
It is the Drive with Sam Piper, ESPN Radio 93.5. Derek Piper, Kyle Tosk. Let's continue our NFL conversation. We'll then transition into some hard-hitting Illinois and Michigan breakdown before we get out of here, of course. We'll have plenty of that during this hour and leading into our predictions for tonight. Will Brad Underwood make it 7-0 against Juwan Howard and company since Juwan's taken over as head coach? Juwan did have a good bit of success against the Illini during his playing days, but since being on the sideline with the Wolverines, he has not beaten Illinois. But we'll talk more about that as we go along. Did have a couple of questions or comments on the U of I Illini Link text line. A 309 says Bears had a lame duck coach with the second pick. Fox, lame duck coach Nagy when they took Fields. Now lame duck coach Eberflus to ruin another good QB.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you can't do the whole charade again to me. Like, if you're going to take Caleb Williams number 1, there's no reason Eberflus should be coming back. Now, maybe that's a sign that, hey, they are sticking with Fields. But can you really trust that? And at the same time, you run it back with Eberflus and Fields, and the Bears are 9-8 again next year, and it's a failure, then, well, you just had 2 number 1 overall picks. You're not going to have a third next year, so it's harder to move on. So I don't know. I'm not going to comment on it much further because I'm obviously not a Bears fan who's been attached to these guys. But in my opinion, I think that they should have fired Eberflus, brought in an offensive head coach, and should draft Caleb Williams number 1. That's what I would do.
I wanted an offensive head coach when they hired Eberflus. I get it. I've said it before. You don't have to be an offensive head coach to have success in this league. It's been proven, whether it's Mike Tomlin, whether it's Bill Belichick, whether it's John Harbaugh. Sean McDermott is another one that's done just fine with not being that play caller who's always in the ear of the quarterback, or even then, Andy Reid. Does Andy Reid even call his own plays anymore, or is it Matt Nagy? It was
Reid for a while, and I think it was Nagy this year, and then the Chiefs' offense took a step backwards.
Did Reid take it back or no?
I don't know. I have to look that up and confirm, but I'm pretty sure he gave Nagy play calling duties this year.
And Mahomes is having the worst statistical season of his career.
I should say, too, by the way, I don't mean like you have to hire an offensive head coach. I just like among the candidates that are available. Like if they hired Harbaugh, I think that would have been a great hire for the Bears, too. So it's not.
Well, then he's an offensive head coach, or he's an offensive head coach, right?
Is he? I
thought he got credit for. Didn't he get a lot of credit for Andrew Luck at Stanford?
I might be wrong. I might be off here. I always thought he was more of a defensive guy.
Let me look it up. We got to do some on-air fact checking. It's no problem. We got the technology to do so. Well, he was a quarterback for the Bears at Michigan and the Bears. In terms of his coaching career, he was the quarterback's coach with the Raiders for a year.
Right, I'm way off then.
That's fine. But I don't know. Like, he wasn't, to my knowledge, he didn't seem like a guy that was wearing a headset and calling plays at Michigan.
No, he wasn't.
He definitely wasn't. I don't know if he was doing that at Stanford back when Luck was there, or how much that was going on with the Niners. But that's not to say that you can't be the guy installing the system and then hiring someone within your same framework to then call the plays and whatnot. But what I really hated was not having an offensive head coach, because I feel like that's your highest paid member of the staff, and that has an ability to then go out and command someone like, obviously I didn't know he was going to be as successful as he was, like Mike McDaniel with the Dolphins, or fill in the blank, the next Kyle Shanahan, the next Sean McVay. That's what everybody's searching for. It's harder to find than it is to say, but Matt LaFleur even with Green Bay. So that certainly plays into it. But then the Bears royally messed up by hiring Luke Getsy as their OC, a guy who had never called plays in the NFL. Now, in digging deeper on this, that there's situations where you bring in a guy that's part of the right tree. Usually it's you're talking about Shanahan, you're talking about McVay, that everyone's searching for. Like the Texans OC was not the play caller in San Francisco, but now he's calling plays, and obviously he's doing just fine in Houston. So the Bears were trying to tap into, let's bring the magic from Green Bay down to Chicago, and whatever they've had going with Aaron Rodgers and LaFleur's background with working with Shanahan and working with McVay, to then translate that to Justin Fields and whatnot, and just it didn't work. And he didn't show a lot of flexibility in adapting or firmly and consistently adapting to Justin Fields' strengths. So I do think that I'll concede this as a guy who is fully and committed to Team Justin Fields bringing back. I think it's fair to say that the Bears messed up developing Justin Fields and that they didn't put a good situation around him. But in terms of what makes sense as far as the financials or perceived limitations, I'd push back on that with Justin. I think that there's a lot there with Justin in terms of talent.
No question.
That you could say that, hey, the Bears just pretty much messed up with him. Like, they didn't give him a good situation to succeed. He's going to have a chance to go somewhere else. But based on the clock, what you've talked about, setting the clock back with the rookie contract, and that's, Caleb Williams has a little bit of a different skill set. He's not the same runner. He's more of a viewed prolific passer, although Justin Fields threw it pretty darn well in college as well. So not to belabor that, I know we're going to talk other coach openings, but yeah, with the OC job for the Bears, I mentioned Greg Roman is one that I'm personally, it's easy for me to recognize what Greg Roman, the former OC with the Ravens, who they did move on from, and they brought in, was it Todd Monken? I think that they have now this year, who was the OC at Georgia, and they brought him in this year, and Lamar had an MVP season. So, but Roman was part of the staff when he had his first MVP year, and obviously knows how to build around a running quarterback, establish a really good run game. I would like that just based on what I know. I know less about a handful of these other candidates. I'm not sure why the Bears, and I say this kind of as a joke, but also a little bit of honesty. Thomas Brown, the OC for the Panthers. Why would you interview the offensive coordinator from the Panthers after the season they just had? There's a list of those that have been interviewed. Shane Waldron from the Seattle Seahawks. Now, I know that it was their passing game coordinator who got hired by the Bucs to be their OC this past year, but Waldron's been the OC, so I think that, to my knowledge, he's called plays both the 2 years ago when they had a breakthrough season and put up some really good numbers. Last year, not as good, although Geno was hurt, and they had some injuries last year that helped contribute to them not being all that good. Clint Kubiak, former Vikings OC, part of the Shanahan situation. He's on the staff there for San Francisco this year. Greg Olsen, not the tight end, who's a great broadcaster, but the OC, who's been an OC for the Rams, the Lions, the Bucks, the Raiders. Liam Cohen, former Rams OC. Marcus Brady, former Colts OC. Zach Robinson, passing coordinator for the Rams. And Cliff Kingsbury, senior offensive analyst for USC. So he was on staff with Caleb Williams this past year?
Yeah, he was.
Fantastic.
I almost feel like that was more of, instead of an interview, like seriously considering him for the job, it was an interview to pick his brain on Caleb Williams.
Yeah. That makes sense. And all credit to the Bears. I'd get, like, it wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world to talk to Cliff Kingsbury. Like, he had a pretty effective offense for a stretch. You know, Kyler Murray was a bona fide MVP candidate for a little more than half a season. Then Call of Duty came out. But yeah,
I happened to coach a guy named Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech.
That's true. And yeah, he only won like 5 games a year, but you got to play defense too. So
yeah, Big 12 did not play any defense at that time, especially.
No. Let's move on to some of the other conversations. So what do you make of Belichick? Like, would you want Belichick? I'm tying this as far as I'm a little surprised, and some of these threads all run together. Like, for him to potentially go to, I thought maybe Dallas would be a potential landing spot. I know some would push back on that and say Jerry Jones might not want a coach who'd want to come in and be able to call a lot of the shots and run things when he wants to run things. But we did see a guy that Belichick worked for come in, that being Bill Parcells, a number of years ago, and be a head coach for, I think, 5 years in Dallas. But Mike McCarthy's staying put. We'll see what happens in Philly. I think that's a potential landing spot. I just think about, if I'm Bill Belichick, I want to, similar to Tom Brady, I want to go into the twilight of my career, a place that I know I can win.
Right.
I want to have another shot at a Super Bowl potentially. And I don't want to go somewhere and try to rebuild something that I might retire by the time it's even ready to really win. So Atlanta, one of the things I would say about Atlanta is that I guess if you get a new quarterback in there, the situation could change. They have Bijan. I don't know how is Kyle Pitts a bust, or has he not had a quarterback? That's a question.
Or has he not had a head coach that wants to get him involved?
That too. How good is Drake London? Again,
I mean, you've had, what is that, 3 straight years of top 10 draft picks of offensive weapons? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That's a lot to work with there for whatever quarterback comes in.
True. And, there's going to be a decision to be made. Kirk Cousins, what's that going to look like? That would be interesting. And another thing I would note, winnable division.
Yes.
So Bill Belichick knows that well. A lot of years in the AFC East. No offense, Kyle.
I'm well aware of it.
It wasn't a great division that the Pats could control and win fairly easily. Now the Bucs look pretty good, although they were 9-7 this year. So I think there's some of that maybe baked into like shots at the playoffs that could help. So I know I'm talking too much here. What do you think of Belichick, potential landing spots, and would you want him?
I don't know. I don't want to mean it as like disrespecting who Bill Belichick is, because he's one of the greatest coaches ever, truly. And I think that there has been some level of the narrative swinging too far in terms of like, oh, well, the Patriots haven't been good since Tom Brady left. Well, Tom Brady left and Mac Jones came in to replace him, and they had the 1 year where Cam Newton was there or whatever it was. Like, that's not really Belichick's fault that he pumped out 8-8 teams with Mac Jones and nobody on offense. And at the same time, he had a front office role there, so you can blame some of it on him, but maybe not on his coaching, I should say. But I don't know. There comes a point where it's like his career's run its course to me a little bit. Like, I don't know. The game's changed so much, and I do feel like he has lost his luster a little bit there the last couple years in New England. And I don't know. I think the Atlanta fit does intrigue me, because I do think that he could turn that team into like a team that wins that division for 5 straight years, and then he retires, and who knows, maybe they make a Super Bowl run and he can go out that way. But I don't know. If it's my team, I don't really want Bill Belichick. I want to go for a younger guy, a more innovative, younger coach, and a guy that I know that, hey, if this guy works out, he could be here for 10, 15 years, as opposed to Belichick, where they're kind of working on a clock. And I just feel like there is a sense of he has kind of faded a little bit here. And I don't think he's fully to blame for that, obviously. But I don't know. I think there is a specific fit that could work for him, but I don't have a ton of interest. And I feel like I don't know if I would want him. Like, let's say the Dolphins job was open. I wouldn't be very interested in that. It wouldn't excite me all that much, even though it should, because he's a legend.
If it guaranteed that Brady was coming with him, would you change your mind? I'm just kidding.
Brady's what, 40?
Well, maybe not now. Maybe if they left at the same time in New England, it obviously would have changed. But yeah, I mean, he had like full GM control in New England, right? He was drafting these guys.
Yeah, that's the thing. So he is to blame for the Patriots.
The offense, brutal. The weapons were not there at all.
His coaching may not be like him. Not being able to coach that roster to better is not his fault, but him putting together the roster is his fault, because he did have GM control there. So that's kind of what I was alluding to.
And I think that would be very interesting if you have to. Do you have to give that to him at his next destination? Do you got to give him full calling of the shots?
If that has to come with it, no go.
Yeah,
he hasn't proven that. Like, he's proven he's a legendary head coach. What has he proven as a GM?
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming if he had it prior to Brady leaving, then he would say he proved that he built Super Bowl contenders. But
Tom Brady,
post Tom Brady, the offensives have been brutal. The weapons have been bad, and then Mac Jones went from looking like maybe the best quarterback of that group in like year one. I think it was Mac Jones' rookie year. They won 10 games. They went to the playoffs, and that's when they got hammered by Buffalo. But outside of that, it's been really rough. Yeah, I think from Atlanta's standpoint, Atlanta doesn't have a lot to lose. Like, I don't think that'd be a bad spot as far as that goes. I know 217 says Belichick in Atlanta picks up Russell Wilson to win now. The short window, Russ could do well with a running team and then deep passes to Pitts in London. I mean, that's
interesting fit there with Russell Wilson's a guy probably the Broncos are going to be looking to get rid of.
Yep. And admittedly, I've had my eye on Atlanta for a handful of months now, as a 309 hints at and says flat out, Fields to Atlanta. Yeah, I do. That's a situation that makes a lot of sense. I don't know if that happens, if Belichick gets that job and Fields goes there, I'll immediately get a cut off Atlanta Falcons sweatshirt. I'm calling it now. I'll wear it another radio show the next day. Well, as soon as it gets shipped. But I'll do that for sure. I'm with you on Belichick. I do think he's still a good – like, their defenses have still been pretty good.
He's still a great coach. I'm not trying to say he's not.
I think he's a great game planner, still a guy that knows how to take away your strengths. And just all the chess matches he would play with Peyton Manning through the years as far as his defenses. I mean, that speaks for itself. I do wonder, though, about, like, his personality. And, like, you kind of mentioned it there with – maybe a younger head coach or just a guy that is enjoyable to be around. Like, he made Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time, miserable. So, like, how does that help whatever next situation it is, whether there's a quarterback established, like if it was Philly, would Jalen Hurts want to be around Bill Belichick? Or if you're in Atlanta and you're trying to bring in a new guy, like, how does that play into it? Maybe I'm speaking too much on that.
Especially if it's Russell Wilson, who we know has clashed with everybody. So if that pairing would be nightmare.
That would be toxic. And maybe it matters less if you get an OC that is more in control of that side of the ball and whatnot. But that's where I'm with you on Belichick. I think Philly would be worth considering just because their defense needs to bounce back after this year that went off the rails big time. And they're built to win now. So that makes sense as far as fitting for him. And then Atlanta, I just don't think you have a lot to lose.
Yeah, and to the Philly point, and this can kind of be a transition a little bit, but I am just, I don't know. And I'm not deep into, you could ask Eagles fans and they'd probably tell me something I don't know. But I don't really understand why it's just a foregone conclusion. Like, oh yeah, Sirianni's got to be gone. I get it. It was a brutal collapse this year. They started 10-1, but that's a guy who took them to a Super Bowl a year ago, and they were a 10-1 football team, and they are a team that has the last 2 years been near the top of the NFL. I get it ended really poorly this year, but I still think that he kind of, as much as I don't really personally like him all that much, I think he's a little cocky, whatnot. Like, he embodies Philly. I think he's kind of a perfect match for that city and that organization. And I'm surprised that it's swung so far to one brutal end of the season, albeit it was a brutal end of the season that he deserves blame for, is all of a sudden like, he's got to be gone now. I don't know if I would let him go quite yet.
Unless in the like postseason interviews when you conduct it, the GM might do that. Some of the ownership would do that with the players. If the locker room, if he's lost the locker room that much. Now there was an article on ESPN, like I was listening to Bill Simmons, I think, talk about this, and it was the article on ESPN dropped the day of the playoff game, like before it was even played. Pretty much like here's all the stuff that's been going on behind the scenes, and that A.J. Brown was talking about how the coaches, the players got to start playing for the coaches, and there's a disconnect there and whatnot. And I don't know all of it. I expected it, admittedly, going back and reading it, to be a little bit more juicy and as far as that goes. But if it's a situation where Jalen Hurts doesn't want to play for him or there's a rift there, maybe you'd make a move.
That makes more sense, yeah.
He did lose both of his coordinators. Like Shane Steichen goes to the Colts, Jonathan Gannon goes to the Cardinals, and not being able to piece that together. Although there have been so many examples of it's one of the most like famed curses in the NFL is a team that loses the Super Bowl the next year usually doesn't even make the playoffs. It's just kind of the way it goes. I know that's maybe just a dumb excuse if that's how things play out, but as long as the locker room's not like soured on him to like it not being replaceable, or if you just see an opportunity to say, hey, our defense was bad last year, let's go get Mike Vrabel, let's go get Belichick, and that's kind of where I'm really interested on Vrabel.
He's getting a job for sure. If he doesn't, it'd be a crime.
Yeah, and that's another one I might be like, man, he's far more proven than Eberflus is by a long shot, and maybe that would be a situation that even if the Bears wanted to stay defensive-minded, but
Vrabel's a guy that I would have liked to see go to Dallas.
Yeah.
McCarthy, I can't believe they're bringing him back.
Yeah,
they'd be really attractive too.
Super attractive. Had a great regular season again, but even better this time, obviously. But losing home playoff games, I don't know. I don't know what's up with that, because it's a very appealing offseason. Like they could be, and we know that Jerry is not afraid to roll out the money. Like, could they not challenge the Chargers to say, oh, you think you're the leader in the clubhouse for Jim Harbaugh? Here's the Dallas job, Jim.
Absolutely.
I don't know. That's interesting. If you want to weigh in, you can. 217-359-2255 on the U of I Illini Link text line. We'll talk some more Illinois, Michigan. Circle it back to the Hoops game tonight. It's going to tip in Ann Arbor. Let's get the breakdown of what we expect to see from the Wolverines and how the Illini can improve after a disappointing showing in Champaign on Sunday. We'll get to that next. This is The Drive.
First Federal Savings Bank of Champaign-Urbana invested in our community since 1908. Before you buy your home in 2024, we invite you to speak with one of our experienced lenders, Jack, Jim, Kim, or Lane. Experience the convenience of working with a local lender with local service, decisions, and loan underwriting in our comfortable offices. Visit us to experience the exceptional friendly service from our knowledgeable staff. Hey, if you're not already banking with us, give us a try. We think you'll love it here. We do. 356bank.com, First Federal. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS 435120.
Are you tired of shivering in the winter? Look no further than your local heroes at ABC Heating and Air Conditioning. Hi, this is Gina inviting you to give us a call at 217-352-5400 to book your appointment to make sure your furnaces run safely and efficiently this winter. We've been proudly locally owned and operated and have been serving our community for over 50 years. ABC, always be comfortable. Call me 217-352-5400 to book your appointment today or go to abcheatingandac.com.
ILLINI. Cheer on the Illini and Pia as the pregame fun starts at Pia Sports Bar and Grill. Pia serves up its famous 10-ounce Slugger Burger along with great wings and so much more. Enjoy 350 22-ounce light and course light drafts every home and away Illini game. Watch the game at Pia's or ride the free shuttle to all home games. You'll find it all at Pia's with live video gaming, sports, food, drinks, and fun. See you at Pia's, West Springfield Avenue in Champaign.
Illini fans, taste what's special about Jet's Pizza by ordering any of their specialty pizzas for $5 off. That's right, $5 off on all specialty pizzas like the barbecue chicken pizza, chicken grilled to perfection, premium mozzarella, bacon, red onion, and barbecue sauce all piled onto Jet's amazing crust made from dough they make fresh every day. There's also their super special all-meaty chicken bacon ranch and more, all $5 off. Make your day special and order a Jet's specialty pizza for $5 off.
Gear up to support your Fighting Illini this season at the official fan store of the Fighting Illini, Game Day Spirit. Shop their great selection of t-shirts, sweatshirts, and NIL jerseys as you cheer on your Fighting Illini. Visit them at the corner of 6th and Green in Campustown, Neal and Kirby in Champaign, or online 24/7 at GameDaySpirit.com. Game Day Spirit, where Illini fans shop.
Don't miss your chance to cheer on Fighting Illini basketball this season.
Deafening in here, 15,000, another sellout.
We need all of Illini Nation to help us defend State Farm Center.
And Illinois overcomes their largest deficit of the season.
Great seat locations are still available for you to see Illinois basketball live this season.
The Illini win it.
Get your tickets today at fightingillini.com.
In an ever-changing real estate market, it is so important to work with experienced agents like Russ and Nick Taylor with the Taylor teams at Taylor Realty Associates. They have the knowledge and expertise to get your home sold for the most amount of money in the shortest amount of time. Trust the experience and success of Russ and Nick Taylor with the Taylor team at Taylor Realty Associates. Give them a call today at 217-355-0700 or visit them online at taylorboys.com. That's taylorboys.com.
Get the roof your home deserves by Roof Doctors, your residential roofing specialist that has always offered the best warranties in the industry, like our non-prorated 50-year warranty. Our customers love that we are family-owned and locally operated. We make our customer needs our top priority. With over 30 years experience and the best customer service, give Roof Doctors a call today for your free estimate at 328-7529. In your community and for your community, Roof Doctors.
Your anti-aging skincare routine shouldn't stop at the neck. Get the rest of your body in on the action with Merle Norman's new Anti-Aging Complex Body Lotion. This rejuvenating moisturizer delivers long-lasting hydration that softens and smooths for the visibly younger-looking skin beneath your chin. Book your appointment now where beautiful changes happen every day. Experience our most luxurious, advanced, age-defying moisturizer today at Merle Norman, 706 West Market View Drive, over by Subway.
All right, let's get back to the hardwood. Illinois and Michigan tonight. FS1, Kevin Kugler, Stephen Bardo, 7:30 Central on your TVs. Maybe it's usually like 7:35 or whatnot, but just be spotted up by 7:30.
It's always 15 minutes after.
Yeah.
It's the one game ends right around 7:30, and then they go to the studio because they got to get their 15-minute studio show in before they can tip off.
Yep, that's usually how it works. Last I checked, Illinois a 2.5-point favorite. I still think that's probably accurate. I will double check that as we speak. But as I mentioned earlier, Illinois has won 6 straight against the Wolverines, all 6 of those coming against a Juwan Howard-led team. They've won their last 3 in Ann Arbor. The last time they won 4 in a row in Ann Arbor, you have to go back to 2001 through 2005. And yes, it still is a 2.5-point spread favoring the Illini tonight. I put this out to the text line first, the U of I Line Link text line, 217-359-2255, and then to my good friend Kyle Tosk. Vibe check going into tonight. How do you feel? Illinois, not an inspiring performance, not an end-of-the-world performance either, losing to Maryland, but now you go on the road. We know life on the road is very tough. Just look a couple days ago, and Penn State loses, or I should say Penn State hands Wisconsin its first loss in Big Ten play.
Big Ten teams 11-32 in true road games in conference play so far.
It's difficult. So what say you, the listeners out there, just kind of overall vibes going into tonight? Will Brad continue to own Juwan, or will this be a sweaty one that maybe Illinois falls in, or maybe just is lucky to pull away with a W?
I am a little on edge. I don't know what to expect. I think, and you mentioned it during the break, if you had Terrence Shannon here, I'd be really confident. Like, that was a total anomaly, and this team's going to bounce back. I think there were some real issues in that Maryland game that I want to see corrected tonight, especially on the defensive end, especially going against a guard like Doug McDaniel tonight. That scares me with what Jahmir Young just did to this team. I know that they guarded Tyson Walker well. I know they did a nice job on Boo Buie. Both those games are at home. Now you go to Ann Arbor, and Doug's probably going to play 40 minutes because why the heck wouldn't he? He's not playing for like 10 more days.
Yeah, literally like 10 more days.
So I don't know. And I just think, you're playing 6 guys, and Quincy Guerrier, for as good as he was for a while, has struggled here the last couple of games. And Coleman Hawkins, after he was playing some of the best basketball of his career, he comes off kind of a stinker. And I think, maybe those are just a bad day. But I don't know. I'm interested to see. I think tonight's going to be very telling about if they bounce back and take care of a Michigan team that, even without Terrence, they're far better than this year, far better than. You should take care of this game. If they do that, then I think there's no problem. But if this Michigan team either beats you or, some of those same issues pops up tonight, you do have to start to think about this team maybe a little bit differently and just kind of reevaluate things. And I don't know. I'm very curious to see the response of this team, knowing that they lost a game at home. And I think home court, as we mentioned, 11-32 on the road for Big Ten teams. You're not expected to win road games. So home games are so sacred that losing at home to a team that you're so much better than in Maryland, now you got to make up for that. And that's going on the road and picking up a couple wins against teams that you're better than as well, and not letting a Wisconsin-Penn State situation happen and some of these other road teams. So this is a really important game for Illinois to win tonight and absolve themselves of that loss on Sunday. And I think it'll be very telling about where this team currently is at based on how they come out and play in this game.
Yeah, that's well said. I do think from a mentality standpoint, I expect them to be dialed in. I think they will know that it's time to not have another one slip up if you want to be serious about trying to win a Big Ten title or even just having a chance to be in that contention. This is an older team still, even without Terrence. So guys like Marcus, guys like Quincy, Luke Goody, who we always talk to every week, I think that they will come in with a very serious mentality. And I don't think it will be a lack of focus or anything like that would lead to Illinois losing this game. But, yeah, you do bring up a good point in terms of obviously containing what can be electric guard. Now, in watching Doug McDaniel last night as I was writing my preview and going back through it, I mean, he can be erratic. He can be a guy that will take some bad shots, and I saw that his first game back against Ohio State on Monday. He did not have a rhythm early. He was taking some bad ones. He was throwing it out of bounds. But then he rattled off a couple of threes and got some momentum going, and, man, he's really, really quick when he goes downhill. So that's something that Illinois will have to have an answer for with Ty Rodgers, with Justin Harmon getting in front of him. Of course, when you play in a lot of ball screen action, then Coleman might switch onto him. And I do trust Coleman against just about anybody on the perimeter that goes for. I think that leads into another interesting part is obviously Terrace Reed is not Julian Reese, but he's a physical inside presence. Is that a guy that would try to push Coleman around a little bit, both on the glass and any kind of deep post catches that he might be able to get in there? So I wonder about that as well. And you mentioned it off the air in terms of the rebounding. Not that Michigan on paper is a fantastic rebounding team, kind of really at both ends, but offensively they are top 100 in offensive rebounding rate. And I know that Olivier Nkamhoua is a 6'9", 235 grown man who can go to the glass that I'm sure, again, Terrace Reed can do that. Is it Terrace or Taurus? I can't.
I think it's Terrace.
Terrace, yeah. I think so as well. I was listening last night to Gus Johnson and Jim Jackson, and mostly it was Gus Johnson who he mispronounced, which I shouldn't be. I kind of laughed to myself because he mispronounced Nkamhoua like 15 times, which I've done on the air a number of times. I usually say Nkamhoua. But then also he called him Taurus Reed. I was like, wait, I think it was Terrace. And then I don't know. There's of course the NBA might come and poach Juwan, and then I laughed very loudly. But anyways, on the road is I have a feeling tonight could be tough. And obviously the point spread says that it could be, is projected to be a tight game. I expect to get Doug McDaniel's best effort. I expect to get a good effort from Michigan. The counter argument to it is, if you look at the last couple of home games that Michigan has played, they lost to Minnesota, 73-71. They lost to McNeese State. That was late December, 87-76. You go back a little bit further than that. Early December, they lost at home to Indiana. That's a team that we talked about some of their flaws. And then early in the season, lost on their home court to Long Beach State, a team that's 166 on KenPom right now. So,
the funny thing about Michigan is in their 6 conference games, they've led at halftime in every game.
Have they really?
And they're 2-4.
Oh, man.
I mean, they're capable of playing you tough. It's just, can they actually finish, and can they avoid giving up a 15-0 run to you? And they haven't.
Yeah.
But they're better than 7-10. They're more talented than a 7-10 team. For as much dysfunction as there's been there and everything that's happened, I don't think it's a good team. But they're better than a 7-10 team that's lost to Long Beach State at home. They're capable of giving you a really good effort. And I think Illinois, if they play anything close to how they did on Sunday, I think they lose. So they got to be a lot more dialed in tonight.
The matchup between Quincy and Nkamhoua is going to be a huge one.
Totally.
At the 4 spot, 2 guys that are obviously older dudes that are really physical and strong. And the great news for Illinois is that they finally have that 4-man that can match up with some of these guys, like a Dante Scott, like a Olivier Nkamhoua, who I mentioned 6'9", 235, Quincy 6'8", 220, physically strong, good athlete. So I'm not worried about that. Nkamhoua, though, has shown in the past, as you go back to last year in the NCAA tournament, 27, 28 points in the win against Duke for Tennessee, and then this year
he's having a great season.
He is, yeah, definitely. I mean, in Big Ten play, I know that he's their leading scorer. He's averaging about 16 and 6.5 rebounds, 7 rebounds. When I watched that Ohio State game back, I saw a lot of mid-post action for him. He'll post you up. He'll face you. He'll try to shoot that mid-range jumper that seems to be really good at. He can finish at the rim, and he'll be pretty willing to take that three-point shot too. He shot 37% on the season. I know that those numbers are down in Big Ten play in terms of the 3 ball, but he'll look to shoot it if you give him space. And at the other end, Quincy's got to get going because I think his offensive punch is important to taking some of the pressure off of Marcus Demash's shoulders, a guy that's averaged 22 a game since Terrence has been out. And I know he had some turnovers in that last game against Maryland, but it's important to kind of take some of the stress off of Marcus and Quincy being able to finish around the basket, obviously better than he did against Maryland, but also try to get that 3 ball back going. And that's kind of cooled off here of late.
For sure, yeah. Quincy, when he's been playing well, you could just see it elevates the whole team. And yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be really important now to see how he matches up with a guy like Nkamhoua, who's a bigger physical 4-man who might try to back him in, or he might try to spot up, or whatever it is. I like that matchup for Quincy, but on the offensive end is where you need his best. And I think in these games where he's knocking shots down and then he's pump faking guys and driving them and getting to that left-handed layup that he left short a couple times against Maryland, and he'd been making that shot like that. He's been showing a ton on the offensive end, and just his spacing and the ability for him to knock those shots down for both him and Coleman Hawkins, who's coming off a really poor performance. I think that's the other thing I'm watching as well is Coleman was playing some of the best basketball that he's played in his Illinois career, and man, was it elevating this team. And then it's one game. On Sunday, he didn't play well at all on either end, I thought. I thought he played poor on defense, and on offense just couldn't make shots, couldn't really get going. Can he bounce back tonight in a matchup where he's going to be really important on both ends of the court and not let it be a situation where in his career he has battled some inconsistency? He's had this great stretch and then he falls into this lull again. Can he avoid that and just take that Sunday game and say that was just a bad night and I fouled out, and that I'm still going to continue that upward trajectory that I was on, looking like an NBA pick? I'm interested to see if he bounces back tonight because, man, it's really is. If Coleman shows up, Illinois is going to probably win, and if he's bad, they're going to have an uphill battle. And I hope that he bounces back because, man, was he playing great.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, definitely at both ends, knowing that he's going to be important to clashing in the middle with Reed and then switching on to McDaniel. I think that's something that if Illinois can be in the luxury of having a guy, he's already done it against Bowie and Tyson. I think McDaniel might be a step quicker than both those guys. Not that those other guys are bad athletes by any means, but McDaniel's that speedy. But I do think that Coleman, with his length, even if he maybe is an inch, couple inches off his ideal spot, that hand up can be something that really makes it hard to shoot over. So,
is it crazy to say that you'd have the most trust in Coleman guarding McDaniel tonight?
Not entirely, no.
Like, I know you're not. It's not going to be. It's going to be. He's getting switched onto him here and there in ball screens and whatnot. But I don't know. This prototype of point guard, a really quick, smaller, crafty guard. For as good of defenders as Rogers and Harmon are, I don't trust him in that type of matchup. I just feel like, especially a guy like Ty, he's a really good defender. His length is really valuable, but he's not the quickest laterally. I almost have more trust when I see Coleman get switched on. Like, I thought Coleman was the best matchup for Tyson Walker against Michigan State.
Yeah, no, I think that's one thing where they come out with that pick and roll, and you might willingly switch that. And, I mean, they have been, obviously, but you'll just say, hey, keep running that. Keep bringing it back instead of any kind of – although – it was the ball screen action that really hurt Illinois with Jahmir Young. I think that Maryland did a good job of kind of running him off multiple screens a decent amount of time. It just felt like Ty Rogers was trailing him a lot and trying to even get into that screening action. He was kind of already on the hip pocket. So we'll see how Illinois adjusts to that. I think it's going to be one of those things with McDaniel. I know that Zach Shaw kind of spoke to it. It's just his emotion. You'll know early if it's a McDaniel night. Mm-hmm. I think if he comes out and gives you a couple buckets early and that crowd, whatever crowd is there, is getting into it, but he just feels like this is one of my moments. Obviously his season's pretty much been trimmed in half, what's left of it, by his own doing, of course. I'm not trying to make him out to be a victim here, but a home game against a ranked team and a chance for him to really show out, that's going to be potentially where you get Doug McDaniel's best effort. Before we catch a break, I do want to go through some of the other guys to watch out for. Nimari Burnett, of course, is a familiar face. A guy that's not having an awesome season. In Big Ten play, he's averaging about 10 points, 5 rebounds. Shooting numbers are way down. He's like shooting 26% from 3 in Big Ten play. So I don't worry a ton about him as long as he's not left wide open. He's a guy that can make some shots. He went on a heater earlier in the season against St. John's, but he's kind of fallen off since then. Someone that's really shooting the ball well, and admittedly, I haven't done all the homework on this to declare it with the most confidence out of anything I've ever said, but I know he's in the conversation. Terrence Williams might be the most improved shooter in the Big Ten. If not, he's on a very short list because he's gone from shooting 25% from 3 last year to 45% from 3 this year, and he went 5 for 5 from deep against Ohio State. He's a guy that you look at his catch and shoot analytics. They're really high level. They're 90th percentile. You don't want to leave him open. He's a confident shooter and a guy that can burn you. We've talked about Como. We've talked about Terrace Reed. They'll bring in Llewellyn off the bench.
They're similarly to Illinois. They got nothing on the bench.
Yeah,
right now.
Llewellyn and Howard, they don't got a lot on the bench. Short rotation, but some of those guys I mentioned, notably McDaniel, Kamwa, that's where they're going to make that's their two-headed monster. And then if it's a night where Burnett's making some threes, Williams has been pretty good. If Illinois is, not able to offensively click back into place, that those other guys, especially if you're trying to talk about a track meet or any kind of high-scoring affair, but also you'd love to be able to slow some of those guys down and not have to, score 80-plus to win this game.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the key is slowing some of those guys down because I don't have much concern that Illinois is going to score on this Michigan team. They've been really bad defensively. I don't think they have a lot of great individual defenders out there. I think if I'm Illinois, I'm doing everything I can to try to get Doug McDaniel matched up with anybody on the court for me in isolation situations and booty ball situations. I think you could eat that up. I don't think Burnett or Williams, even though they're bigger and longer, I don't think they're great defenders. I wouldn't mind those matchups against a mask in one-on-ones. I think Illinois is going to score tonight, and I think that they're not going to shoot 9 of 23 on layups like they did on Sunday. But I think where they could end up losing this game or this could get dicey is if some of those defensive concerns continue to pop up, Doug McDaniel goes off, some of those shooters start making shots early, and it does turn into a track meet where all of a sudden you're playing a game in the 80s on the road, and maybe it's Michigan that makes 1 or 2 more plays. But if you can slow down Michigan, if you can slow down some of those guys, you can stay in front of McDaniel and some of those shooters, you can stay attached to them, not make their shots tough. I think Illinois should win tonight. I don't have much concern that Illinois is going to get shut down offensively in this game, but Michigan can score. They got pieces offensively, and that's really where it's going to come down to in my eyes is you got to bounce back on the defensive end. And I was looking – I remember, we've talked about, and I know Terrence is a huge part of this, but Illinois was a top 10 defense back in mid-December. They're 34th now or 35th, according to Ken Pom. There has been a defensive drop-off without Terrence Shannon Jr. And that's to be expected. He's great on the defensive end, but you got to guard tonight. You're going to have to find a way to get back to that. And that's not to say they haven't had any, like Michigan State, I thought they were great on that end, but that's going to be the key. Defense. I know that's what Brad Underwood's key is, and that's probably what he spent 90% of practice on based on what he said. Defensive end is where this game's going to be won for Illinois.
Absolutely. And, if you would have told, even without the context of the reasoning why or when it even happened, an Illini fan going into the season that you'd miss Terrence Shannon for 5 games late December through January, eating into the Big Ten play, and that between offensive side and the defensive side, you'd be 10th in one category and 31st in the other.
31st, okay.
As of right now, yep. You'd probably flip those without Terrence.
Yes.
You'd say, all right, we're still really good defensively and we're 31st on offense, probably having a hard time to score without Terrence. They're 10th offensively still, but yes, slipping as far as defense goes. The defensive rebounding percentage has dropped some, and we've seen – obviously, it's recency bias, but Jahmir Young had his way. Tyson Walker didn't play bad. He wasn't, electric. He had 17 points on 17 shots. Boo Buie, 20 points, but it was really the no assists and 4 turnovers. But being able to handle Doug McDaniel, that's where it starts tonight. And then, obviously, as we talked about, Guerrier against Kamwa is a huge matchup. Prediction time coming up. Hit us up on the text line. I know a handful of you have. We'll read those before we get out of here. 217-359-2255. What are you thinking tonight as Illinois gets set to battle Michigan in Ann Arbor? We'll give our predictions next. Stick with us for that. This is The Drive.
When it comes to finding a reliable vehicle, look no further than Sarah Champagne, your trusted automotive destination. They carry a lineup of top brands, including Honda, BMW, Subaru, GMC, and Buick. And they're not just about cars, they're about people. Their team is dedicated to providing you with trustworthy service and dependable vehicles that fit your lifestyle. Experience the difference at Sarah Champagne. Visit Sarah, Serra, Champagne.com.
Since Busey Bank first opened our doors in 1868, we have built upon a tradition of close relationships and broad financial capabilities. Our experienced team provides the highest level of personalized service to ensure we accomplish your goals, simplifying your wealth management and business lending needs and ensuring a legacy for generations. Building business, growing wealth since 1868. Proud to be the official bank of the Fighting Illini. Member FDIC.
Hi, I'm Tyler Weaver, president of Carpet Weavers Flooring and Furniture Gallery. Take a look around your home. Is it finally ready for some much-needed updates? If you don't know where to start, then just meet with one of our experts. We'll help you find the perfect waterproof plank floor for your kitchen or that stain-resistant, super soft carpet for your bedroom. Finish your room update with a custom sofa and chairs, or choose a trendy in-stock dining set that's priced right. Come home to Carpet Weavers, where floors, furniture, and family meet.
Is your birthday in January? Well, get ready to rev up the celebration. Clay Dooley Tire and Auto is giving you a free oil change during your birthday month. That's right, a special treat to keep your wheels spinning smoothly as you celebrate another fantastic year. Don't miss out on this incredible birthday offer. Schedule your complimentary oil change at either the Champaign or Bloomington locations. Since 1917, Clay Dooley Tire and Auto has been your go-to for driving with confidence.
Illini fans, gear up to support your Fighting Illini men's and women's basketball team this year at the official fan store of the Fighting Illini, Game Day Spirit. From buy one, get one free basketball t-shirts to official NIL merchandise, Game Day Spirit has everything you need to support your Fighting Illini. Shop with them in store at the corner of Neal and Kirby in Champaign, 6th and Green in Campus Town, or online 24/7 at GameDaySpirit.com. Game Day Spirit, where Illini fans shop.
Illini fans, this year we celebrate the 100th anniversary of Memorial Stadium for the 2024 Fighting Illini football season. Join us in Memorial Stadium as we honor 100 years of tradition and continue to create memories for the future. Season tickets for the 2024 football season are on sale now. Secure your season tickets for Homecoming, Dad's Day, and a special rededication of Memorial Stadium on October 19th. Experience more cherished moments in Memorial Stadium this season and lock in your tickets today at fightingillini.com.
Are you one of those guys out there tinting windows day in and day out, all different shades of black, and ready to put a little color in your life? Come work for us. At Aftershock, we're looking for a guy with experience in wrapping, whether it be window tinting, vinyl wrapping, anything of that sort, or somebody with just ambition that wants to show up to work and be proud of what they do. You know those wraps with Troy Lands on the back waving at you? That's our work. Call us, 833-DECAL-IT, or email office@aftershockdd.com. We want you.
Illini fans, taste what's special about Jets Pizza by ordering any of their specialty pizzas for $5 off. That's right, save $5 on all specialty pizzas like the barbecue chicken pizza, chicken grilled to perfection, premium mozzarella cheese, bacon, red onion, and BBQ sauce. All piled onto Jets' amazing crust made from dough they make fresh every day. There's also their super special all-meaty chicken bacon ranch and more, all $5 off. Make your day special and order a Jets specialty pizza for $5 off.
First Federal Savings Bank of Champaign-Urbana invested in our community.